Hi there, I'm Owen from 222 and I'm here for DV247 and I'm just going to talk you through really briefly the Traktor Kontrol S2. So Traktor Kontrol S2 is obviously the smaller brother of the S4. It's still the same solid build and still lightweight, and it's still a unit for plug and go. So effectively you can put this in a rucksack along with your laptop and you can go out, plug into some active monitors and you can be up and playing in no time at all. So the S2 is slightly smaller than the S4, as you'll notice, and due to the trade-off in size, what you actually have got is slightly less functionality of the S4 with the S2, but obviously you still get great integration with Traktor as it is. So as we look at it, obviously anyone that's familiar with the S4 will already be familiar with the layout for the S2. Those of you that aren't, what we have is we effectively have a 2-deck controller with a 2-channel mixer in the middle. Now, as we look at the mixer section in the middle, you can see that it's a standard crossfader, 2 up faders, and then we have a 3-band EQ in the center, 1 for each. We have a high, a mid, and a low. For A and for B, we have 2 Q buttons. What we also have in the middle here is the browse section. Now, the browse section and the sample section. First off, the browse section will allow you to browse through your directory as you've set it up. Anyone that's familiar with Traktor will already know the concept of crates and directories. Those of you that are new to it as well, directories and crates are going to be how you organise and store your music. It's up to you as to how you want to go about doing that. You could do it by BPM, you could do it by genre, you could do it however you felt it was going to be the best way to work for you. So in order to actually look and use the S2 to locate and load a track on to Traktor, literally all we need to do is hit the browse button, which is this big rotary encoder in the middle. That will take us into the browse function. Then on the left hand side here within Traktor, we go down and we actually choose which crate we want to look at. Again, I'm going to run off the demo tracks because this will be something that you guys will have straight out of the box, and so you'll probably be able to find the track as well. Track that I'm going to choose to use is Techno 2. So once I've chosen the right directory folder here by clicking on, I can then load it via the S2. Now I can choose to either load that onto deck A or to deck B, and it is simply just a case of either pressing A or B. So I'm going to load this track onto track number A. So I choose the track with the rotary encoder and then I press A. And you can see on the screen now that we've gone in and we've got something on A. So remember to come back out of the browse function again once you've finished. And to do that, you just simply need to press the browse button again. So at the top here, we have Effects 1 and Effects 2, and similar to the S4, we can choose whether or not we want to run Effects 1 to channel A or Effects 2 to channel B, or vice versa. And the way that we do that is by actually pressing on 1, 2, 1, 2 here. Again, I tend to stick to the same 3 effects, and so I always find that over-cluttering and having too many effects can make it a bit muddy, and especially when you're starting off, it's a little bit confusing. Have a play about with Traktor, find the effects that you like, really learn how to use those effects effectively as well, and then obviously from that point on you can choose to change the palette if you wish to. So once I've got my effects on here, let's say that I want to put Effects Bank 1 onto channel 1, I would do so. In the same way as with the S4, we have high quality jog wheels, same concept. If I move the top, rewind and fast forward, it will move the track. Once the track's playing, if I want to slow down the track, I do it on the side of the jog wheel. If I want to speed that track up again, I do it on the side of the jog wheel. Whenever I touch the top of the jog wheel, it's going to stop the audio, okay? So just be aware of that. Anyone that's coming from a CDJ background will be familiar with this already. Anyone that's new to it, well, it's going to be the way that you're going to be learned. So it's going to be second nature for you anyway. So let's have a look at the effects really quickly. So in the same way as with the S4, I've got 3 effects across the top here. I can choose to have a single effect if I wanted to, but I'm choosing to have 3 effects within this bank. And simply by the way to switch them on is to switch these buttons on here. You know if they're on because the button's going to be highlighted, okay? So let's have a look and let's see what we've got coming off of this one. Okay, so you can hear all of those effects coming through there. Let's actually switch these effects off now and let's just take one. And let's have a look. This is going to be a beat masher. Okay, and again, it would work exactly the same way if I wanted it to affect channel number 2, if I wanted it to affect deck B, or actually, if I wanted to run off of effects bank number 2, I would just press number 2 up there, bring my Dret and Y dry and wet mix up. Anyone that's not familiar with that, dry and wet just basically means if it's dry, I'm not hearing any affected signal. If it's wet, I'm hearing affected signal, okay? Get used to that, play about with it, okay? Okay, and that's that effect off there again. So we can switch that off for now. In the same way as with the S4, what we've got here is we've actually got loop and cue points, okay? These work in exactly the same way. If I press play, automatically when you load a track into Traktor, it will set the hot cue number 1 as the first downbeat. So if I want to go back to number 1, just press number 1, and you'll notice on the screen as well, it's jumped right back to the beginning of the track. In the same way with the S4, with the S2, if I hit shift and cue, it's going to take me back to the start of the track again, okay? We can choose to jump through the track as well. If you remember last time when we were looking at the S4, we could choose to jump through in 32 beats, 16 beats or 8 beats and going down from there as well. Exactly the same with the S2. All I need to do is I need to decide what length I want to skip through the track. So let's say we want to skip through in 4 beats, okay? So now when I move this left rotary encoder, we're jumping through at 4 beats at a time. And in the same way, it's all synced and it's all matched. Traktor's working off of the beat grid, so as long as your beat grid is set correctly, whenever you skip and move through a track, it will all be done perfectly in time. Really useful way for you to skip through any mundane parts of a track that you're not necessarily interested in, or if you want to mix early on and then get to the drop or the breakdown really quickly, it's a good way to navigate through your track in that way. In exactly the same way as the S4, if I want to apply any cue points to within the track, it's just a case of pressing 2, 3 and 4. And in the same way, you'll notice now that I've got extra tabs that have appeared within the waveform, and that is 2, 3 and 4. And I can skip through. Okay, and you can skip through in that way. If I want to get rid of those, it's just a case of holding shift and switching them off in that way as well. Let's look at putting a loop on really quickly. We can do this manually, or we can use the brain within Traktor via the S2 to help us to do that. So let's say we want to actually apply something in manually, okay? So I'm going to hit my in point where I want this loop to start and my out point where I want it to end. Okay, and that's automatically active now, okay? And I can hear that I'm happy with that loop setting as it is. And that would just continue to loop round if I wanted it to, okay? What I can do is I can actually vary the length of that loop section, should I choose to, by using the right hand encoder here. And it's just a case of going down 2 to 1, and you can hear that in the music. Okay, and to come out of that active loop region again, all I'm going to press is I'm going to press the left hand encoder, and that's going to take me out of it as well. In the same way as we've been applying hot cue samples, we can also apply loop sample points within it as well. So let's set a 4-beat loop. So the first thing I need to do is choose 4, and I know that I'm on 4 now by looking back at Traktor, and I can see that I've got 4 beats activated. And then when I'm ready, all I'm going to do is press down on the button. Okay, so that's in as a 4-beat loop now. Let's say I want to put that onto number 2. Simply, all I do is press number 2. I know that that's a loop point and not a hot cue because they're color coded. Hot cues are color coded in blue, loops are color coded in green, okay? So it might be now actually that I want to carry on playing and I want to put another hot cue point in. Well, there we go, I've got it. And I know it's a hot cue because it's highlighted up in blue. And in the same way now, let's imagine I want to put another 4-bar loop section in. I'm just going to come here. Okay, that's in now, and that will just keep on looping, and I can take it and put it onto tab number 4. It's green, so it's a loop point. If I want to come out of that loop section, just press the left one. The loop zone's now not active again, okay? These are all still stored here. Remember, if I want to jump back to a hot cue, I'm just going to hit number 3. That's going to take me to a hot cue. If I want to go back to one of these 2 loop regions, it's just as simple as pressing 2 or 4. We're in there. Remember though, if the loop isn't active, i.e. if you haven't activated it and switched it on so that the waveform is highlighted, it will jump back to point 2, but it won't loop. If I want it to loop, I need to switch it on and then go back to there, okay? And it will continually keep on looping in that section then. Let's have a look at getting rid of those. Well, if I hit shift and take them all off, that's freed all of that up as well, okay? So now let's just really quickly, let's have a look at the sample section of this as well. You can have control over the sample decks with the S2, and you decide whether or not it's C or D that you're affecting by pressing A or B, okay? I can affect both of them at the same time, should I choose to, or I can just choose to affect one of them at the time, okay? I have to have global control over all of the samples with the S2. I can't individually affect the samples on their own in the same way as I do with the S4. But obviously, the payoff is, because the S2 unit is slightly cheaper and obviously smaller in size, you have lost some functionality in that you can only really have complete control over 2 of the decks, A and B, with limited control over C and D. So that's been it. I've been Owen for 222 for DV247.